Hello and welcome to Midday Report here on TVP World. I'm Marie Cato. The Polish military has successfully deterred a Russian shadow fleet tanker which Prime Minister Donald Tusk says was acting suspiciously near a power cable in the Baltic Sea. An emergency meeting at the Naval Operations Center in Gdynia with Tusk in attendance has been called for tomorrow.
A Russian ship from the so-called shadow fleet covered by sanctions was acting suspiciously near a power cable connecting Poland with Sweden. After an effective intervention from our military, the ship departed for a Russian port. The Polish vessel ORP Heveliusz is currently heading to the scene of the incident.
For months now, the Baltic Sea has been seeing attacks, sabotage, shadow fleet operations, efforts to destroy undersea cables, and airspace violations. Poland is very sensitive about any hostile actions in the area and has been instrumental in launching the Baltic Sentry mission, with joint forces, operations, and monitoring efforts. Yesterday, we were dealing with a situation where a call came in about suspicious behavior from a ship that has recently been identified as part of Moscow's shadow fleet. The incident did not happen in Polish territorial waters, but took place just above undersea cables owned by Poland's state power transmission operator. Relevant officers immediately issued orders to follow pre-established procedures, including launching patrol flights and deterrence efforts. The latter proved successful, and the ship eventually departed. To clarify what happened in what we believe was a serious incident, the Polish hydrographic ship ORP Heveliusz has been dispatched to the scene. Tomorrow we will hold an emergency meeting at the Naval Operations Center in Gdynia's Polish Navy port, with Prime Minister Tusk in attendance.
The European Union's €150 billion safe defence production loan package is one step closer to becoming a reality. The measure would supercharge European defence spending, but requires one final tick of approval next week in Brussels. We are joined live by our EU correspondent Angela Skujins from the Belgian capital. Hello, Angela. What can you tell us about those discussions that occurred regarding the safe package today?
Yes, so the 27 ambassadors from those varying EU member states green-lit that safe loan package roughly at 9 a.m. this morning. Now, according to our official sources, what was discussed today and approved upon resembles what the European Commission proposed in March when they outlined the thrust of this €150 billion loan package, which is aimed at ensuring that Europe has the domestic defence capabilities to ensure that if the continent is attacked by 2030, it can defend itself and it does not need to rely on any external partners. Now, according to our sources, the guts of this text resembles what the European Commission earlier proposed. This includes that requirement of the 65% of the value weapons system that an EU member state can apply to be financed with. That 65% has to come from an EU member state as well as Ukraine or a country participating as part of the European Economic Area. The remaining 35% can come from a country that has a security and defence pact. We know earlier this week the UK signed such an agreement with the EU, which is a boon for the continent, meaning that those European partners can draw upon the seventh largest provider of military capabilities around the world. But what can they apply for exactly? Projects can include ammunition and missiles, artillery systems, small drones, anti-drones and other technologies. But in terms of the timeline, it needs that final tick of approval on Tuesday at the General Affairs Council meeting. If all goes according to plan, member states will have 2 months to apply for a particular project. Then the European Commission will take 4 months to assess these applications, meaning we'll have a better understanding in what's the defence pipeline by the end of the year. But that's all from Brussels. I'll send it back to you in Warsaw.
Many thanks, Angela Skujins, reporting for us from Brussels. 36 delegations from the EU countries, its partners, EU institutions and international organisations have flocked to Poland's capital, Warsaw, on Wednesday to attend an informal meeting dedicated to the cohesion policy, a salient EU strategy geared towards bridging economic, social and territorial disparities across regions of the bloc. Piotr Miszczuk has this report.
The European Union is at a crossroads whether to continue its support for underserved regions or to place more premium on the most developed areas to boost the bloc's competitiveness outside. And on this topic, today in Warsaw, as part of the Polish presidency of the Council of the European Union, the ministers for cohesion policy, territorial cohesion and urban matters have come together to hold talks on those pivotal issues. This meeting is an informal one, so the best we can expect is a joint declaration afterwards. But what the delegates, as they told me, really want to do is they want to send a message to the outside world that cohesion does matter. Cohesion, or as we simply can put it, leaving no one behind. I spoke to Ioannis Vardakastanis of the European Economic and Social Committee, who told me that this cohesion is also key for political stability Europe-wide.
If we are not able to keep our societies united, our citizens not only secure, but also enjoying well-being, our democracies working well, our capacity to deal with populist and nationalist movements, and our people not to be misled because they are left behind, then our defense towards external borders will not be so effective.
The talks here center around the future of the cohesion policy in the next budget after 2027. In the current budget from 2021 till 2027, the cohesion policy is still the most important point, making up 1/3 of the whole budget, which is approximately 400 billion euros. But there are challenges within the cohesion policy, such as excessive red tape and the slow implementation of the policy, especially when it comes to public procurement. But there are also challenges outside, such as increased defense spending, which might dent the spending on the cohesion policy. Also, the common agricultural policy is another challenge that has now come to the fore. But we are waiting for the statement of the ministers after the meeting, and we'll see what it brings. For TVP World from Warsaw, I'm Piotr Miszczuk.
Vladimir Putin visited the Kursk region on Wednesday for the first time since Russian forces pushed Ukrainian troops out of the area. The visit comes as a Russian missile attack on Ukraine's Sumy region left 6 soldiers dead and 10 others wounded. Our Kyiv correspondent Oz Katerji reports.
Russian President Vladimir Putin has visited the western Kursk region of Russia for the first time since Russian forces ejected Ukrainian troops out of the majority of the Kursk region last month. Now, Putin on his visit visited local officials and also visited the Kursk 2 nuclear power plant while it's under construction. During his talks with local officials, Vladimir Putin spoke to the governor of Kursk, who encouraged Putin to seize further territory in Sumy, saying Sumy should be ours. That's Sumy in northern Ukraine. Now, this will raise more concerns for the Ukrainians, who have been reporting that Russia has been on offensive maneuvers in the Sumy region, trying to capture more territory. It must be remembered that that was one of the reasons that the Ukrainians gave for entering into the Kursk region at all, was to push that line back away from their Sumy Oblast and to protect Sumy from further bombardment, but also incursion from Russian troops. So the Ukrainians maintain they still have a small presence across the border in the Kursk region and also in the Belgorod region. But this move by Putin shows that he's certainly emboldened. He didn't visit Kursk at all while it was under Russian Ukrainian occupation. But again, these words regarding Sumy are going to be causing further concern in Kyiv, particularly given how long the front line is already in the east and south of the country. Having to add more, having more troops stationed in the north will only weaken their lines in other parts of the country. It's Oz Katerji reporting from Kyiv for TVP World.
U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio has said that he anticipates Russia will offer proposals for a ceasefire in Ukraine in the coming days. He noted that these proposals presented by Moscow will enable the United States to determine whether Russia's intentions are genuine.
So what we're expecting now, based on the President's phone conversation yesterday and my conversations over the weekend with Mr. Lavrov, is that at some point here fairly soon, maybe in a number of days, maybe this week hopefully, the Russian side is going to present terms that they would want to see, just broad terms that would allow us to move towards a ceasefire. And that ceasefire would then allow us to enter into detailed negotiations to bring about an end to the conflict. We are hoping that will happen. We believe that the term sheet that the Russians produce will tell us a lot about their true intentions. If it's a term sheet that's realistic and you can work off of it.
Polish Prime Minister Donald Tusk has revealed that he spoke with Ukrainian President Vladimir Zelensky earlier today. During the call, Zelensky updated Tusk on the latest developments regarding ceasefire discussions. The Prime Minister shared this in a post on X.
In a phone call, President Zelensky informed me about the process of recent ceasefire talks and the conditions for future peace, as well as ongoing preparations for new sanctions against Russia. The commitment of Poland, France, Germany, England, Italy and the US is key in this process.
Poland will extend its temporary restriction of asylum applications at the border with Belarus. The restriction aims to limit the influx of illegal migrants. A total of 366 lawmakers voted in favor of the extension, 17 against. No one abstained.
Addressing the issue the day before, Prime Minister Donald Tusk emphasized the importance of asylum rights, but argued that the current situation warranted the suspension. He pointed out that the right to asylum was being exploited by Russia, Belarus, smugglers and criminals who are turning migration into a mass illegal movement that he described as a form of aggression against Poland. The initial ruling, which suspended the right to asylum for 60 days, came into effect on March 27th.
Polish Prime Minister Donald Tusk has announced that duty-free imports of products from Ukraine will no longer be permitted as of June 5th. Speaking to the Polish Parliament on Tuesday, the head of Poland's government said that import regulations will be reverted back to prior to the outbreak of the Russian invasion of Ukraine. Tusk noted that the autonomous trade measures and EU mechanism geared towards aiding the Ukrainian economy uncontrollably opened the Polish border to Ukrainian agricultural products, threatening the stability of the Polish domestic product market. In recent months, cheap imports from Ukraine have led to a slew of farmers' protests across the EU bloc, including in Poland, Germany, Austria, Hungary, Slovakia and the Czech Republic. European Union diplomacy chief Kaja Kallas is beginning her three-day visit to the Western Balkans. The region remains firmly on the EU's radar, and Brussels intends to eventually welcome candidate countries from the area into the bloc.
There are 5 EU candidate countries in the Western Balkans, and the region is one of the main directions of potential EU expansion. The European Union aims to promote peace and stability in the Western Balkans and to support the candidate countries in fulfilling the requirements needed to join the bloc.
Protests continue in Serbia after a court in Novi Sad ruled that 3 of the 6 activists arrested for allegedly planning a coup d'etat should be placed under house arrest. The protests have been ongoing since late last year following a tragic roof collapse at a railway station in Novi Sad that killed 16 people.
Students and members of the public gathered in the main squares of Serbian cities said that despite the decision, they will continue to protest until everyone is released from prison. The court's order to move the 3 activists to house arrest prompted a comment from Serbian President Aleksandar Vučić. In a live TV interview, Vučić claimed that no other country would release those charged with undermining the constitutional order so quickly. Additionally, the Serbian president went on to call the activists charged with organizing the coup d'etat, quote, terrorists.
Bilbao is gearing up for one of the largest football events of the year, the final of UEFA's Europa League. This year's match in Spain will see 2 English teams, Tottenham Hotspur and Manchester United, battle it out for the €13 million prize and a spot in next year's edition of the Champions League.
The match will mark the last opportunity for each of the clubs to end a session with a trophy and suit their fans. Both teams looked poor this year. Manchester United entered the league campaign in 16th place, while Tottenham took the 17th spot in the league table. Winning the match will also mark Tottenham's first European trophy since 1984 and the first trophy of any kind since they won the English League Cup in 2008. On the other hand, Manchester United supporters are eager to return to the club's glory days. Finishing 16th in the Premier League while trained by Ruben Amorim is a far cry from the 13 league titles won under the guidance of the legendary manager Sir Alex Ferguson.
And that's all for this edition of Midday Report. Thank you for joining us and stay tuned for more on TVP World. Goodbye.